Two. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, if I could kindly ask you to start taking your seats as we are about to start the second part of the opening day. Thank you so much. Indeed, very much aware that the session after lunch is always a bit challenging in terms of getting people back into the room, but I can tell you that the fact that you are here is very much reflective of the importance of the following session, because it is dealing with a subject matter that every nation, certainly on this continent in Europe, is grappling with these days, namely energy security. And so this following session is titled Energy Competition in a Multipolar World. It is going to be moderated in just a moment by the director of the Institute for Development and International Relations here in Croatia, Jaška Pulic, who will introduce himself in just a moment. But before we get started, we're very delighted and honored that the session will be inaugurated by a high-level speaker who obviously, due to the strategic location and position of his country, can speak with great deal of expertise and knowledge about energy competition in a multipolar world. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage for a keynote speech the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Uzbekistan, His Excellency Bakhtiyor Saidov. Ladies and gentlemen.
Distinguished participants of the ladies and gentlemen, allow me to thank the organizers of the Dubrovnik Forum for the opportunity to discuss one of the most pressing challenges on today's international agenda: how to ensure energy security, sovereignty, and long-term stability in an increasingly complex and multipolar world. Today, energy is no longer simply an economic resource. It has become a factor of strategic autonomy, technological leadership, industrial competitiveness, and geopolitical influence. We are witnessing a rapid transformation of the traditional architecture of global energy markets. A system built on a limited number of suppliers is giving way to a far more complex reality. Diversification, flexibility, technological independence, and trust among the partners are becoming increasingly important. In this new environment, traditional hydrocarbon producers continue to play a vital role. At the same time, renewable energy, critical minerals, energy storage technologies, hydrogen solutions, digital grid management, and resilient supply chains are creating additional centers of influence and opening new opportunities for cooperation. This is precisely where Central Asia and Uzbekistan in particular can contribute to the solution. For many years, Central Asia was often viewed primarily as a geographical space situated between major centers of power. Today, however, our region is increasingly asserting itself as a relevant, responsible, and constructive actor in global economic and energy processes. The region possesses substantial energy resources, significant solar and wind potential, and an important resources base of critical minerals. These resources are directly relevant to the production of batteries, electric vehicles, clean energy technologies, and advanced manufacturing. Beyond its resource potential, Central Asia is also strengthening regional cooperation, expanding cross-border connectivity, and moving toward a more integrated energy market. This is increasing the region's predictability and creating new opportunities for deeper cooperation with Europe. Within this transformation, Uzbekistan seeks to play an active and constructive role. For us, the global energy transition is not a zero-sum game. Rather, it is an opportunity to create new forms of cooperation based on mutual benefit, technological exchange, and shared responsibility for sustainable development. In recent years, Uzbekistan has embarked on a large-scale program to modernize its energy industry. That sector attracts more than 20 billion USD of investments. Leading international companies from Europe, the Middle East, and Asia are implementing major projects in renewable energy, grid modernization, and energy efficiency. Our objective is to build a more diversified, reliable, and modern energy system. Uzbekistan aims to increase the share of renewable energy in electricity generation to 54% by 2030 and commission more than 20 gigawatts of green generation capacity. This is not merely a declaration of intent, but a practical program supported by investment projects, market reforms, and openness to long-term partnerships. The strategic importance of cooperation with the European Union was reaffirmed at the first Central Asia European Union Summit in Samarkand in 2025. The EU's Global Gateway Initiative and related investment commitments create a strong foundation for translating political dialogue into practical projects. From our perspective, several areas deserve particular attention. The first, it is essential to expand European investment and technological participation in the development of renewable energy across Uzbekistan and the entire Central Asian region. This involves not only renewable generation, but also energy storage, digital grid management, equipment manufacturing, workforce training, and energy efficiency standards. Such cooperation would enable the region to accelerate its green transformation while providing Europe with a reliable partner in building the new energy foundation of Eurasia. Second, the development of green energy corridors should become a strategic priority. The Trans-Caspian Green Energy Corridor could become an important element of the future energy architecture linking Central Asia and Europe. Combined with the Middle Corridor, it would create opportunities for clean electricity transmission, hydrogen logistics, industrial cooperation, and technological exchange. Third, particular attention should be devoted to critical minerals and value-added processing. For Europe, diversifying supplies of critical minerals is increasingly a matter of industrial resilience. For Uzbekistan and other countries of the region, it represents an opportunity to move up the value chain and develop new industrial capacities. Fourth, the modernization and integration of Central Asian power systems. European experience in interconnected electricity markets, smart grids and energy storage is of great interest to us and can help strengthen regional energy security. To advance this agenda, political commitments must be translated into concrete projects supported by the European Union, international financial institutions, and private sectors. The current international environment presents serious challenges, yet it is precisely in such times that partnerships of genuine strategic value prove their importance. For Europe, cooperation with Central Asia contributes to energy security, industrial resilience, and stronger Eurasian connectivity. For Uzbekistan, partnership with the European Union supports modernization, investment and technological development. This creates synergy and generates strategic advantages for both parties. We have all the foundations for deeper cooperation, resources, technology, political will, and converging interests. And I'm confident that the Dubrovnik Forum can continue to serve as an important platform for an open, practical, and forward-looking dialogue. Distinguished participants, allow me to take this opportunity to highlight a new initiative proposed by the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan, His Excellency Shavkat Mirziyoyev, aimed at strengthening interregional connectivity, including in the field of energy sector and other important areas. In this context, Uzbekistan will host the interregional and international, I would say, ministerial conference with the name Interregional Dialogue for Peace and Sustainable Connectivity, the Central Asian Approach, in Tashkent on 27-28 November this year. So we invite all partners worldwide, including the European Union and its member states, to participate in this conference and contribute to strengthening interregional connectivity and cooperation. I wish all participants very productive discussions and every success at Dubrovnik Forum. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister Saidov, for your keynote remarks and for bringing the perspective of Central Asia and Uzbekistan to this panel. Hello, everybody, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests. My name is Jakša Puljiz, and as has been said, I be the moderator of the panel. Today we have a really excellent panel, which allow me to introduce to you. Here on my left is Mr. Anže Logar, who is the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy, Labor and Sport of the Republic of Slovenia. We have here also Mr. Nicolae Štefanuca, who is the Vice President of the European Parliament. Welcome. Mr. Josip Brkić, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Welcome. Ms. Ivanka Tasheva, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Bulgaria, is here with us. And from Croatia, Mr. Vedran Špehar, State Secretary of the Ministry of Economy. Welcome. And finally, from the Republic of Kazakhstan, Mr. Ardak Zebeshev, who is the Chairman of the Investment Committee at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Welcome. Okay, so let's start after this excellent introduction, which really put those key, let's say, pinpointed the key topics that we will try to dive in this topic, give a European perspective, but also this multi-regional perspective, especially the connectivity and partnership perspective with the Central Asia. So let's start. Mr. Štefanuca, can we start with you? Let's start with a little bit wider European perspective. So from your perspective, from the perspective of the European Parliament, what would you say are the main energy vulnerabilities that EU should address and which are necessary to be addressed in order to become more sovereign, more resilient in this very unsecure multipolar world? What should be the priority?
Well, first of all, is this working? Yes,
It's working.
Okay. First of all, good afternoon, and thank you so much for our Croatian guests. This is the European Union. We are in the European Union. And I was listening to our esteemed minister from Uzbekistan correctly pointing to some of everyone's vulnerabilities. I think the crisis in the Hormuz Strait has shown that we are collectively vulnerable, not just the European Union, but other resource-rich nations as well, who have suffered from price spikes that were to a level that was unexpected, no? I mean, I'm talking about global nations that have good reserves of oil and gas, and still they felt the immediate effect at the tank, at the gas station, and so on. So the vulnerabilities that the European Union, I would say, are common to the vulnerabilities that many other nations across the world share. I mean, listening to the minister's points, I thought maybe he shared a copy of my speech in advance, because some of them were really, really similar. And I'm going to talk about a few things. We are in the European Union. We have reduced our dependencies and diversifying our supplies. You know, the EU was for a long time very, very dependent on imports from Russia. This has been addressed also via legislation, but also via resource diversification. I think the invasion of Ukraine showed us very clearly that we cannot, with one hand, finance the growth of an energy sector that's financing the budget of a war machine, and at the same time suffer from the consequences of that. So we took action and we drastically reduced our dependency, which is a good thing. Diversifying supplies. I'm not just talking about expensive LNG importation. I'm also talking about the growth of renewable energy, with the goal to reach 43% by 2030. And we have seen a boom, not just in Europe, but across many other nations. I will give you the example of Moldova. Moldova, that was completely dependent on imports, managed to sustain, okay, for a short while, complete renewable energy production. Many other countries have managed to do that in the region. Renewable energy is booming. Energy communities are booming. I think right now in Brussels, with the packages that are coming on the electrification grid and so on, we are addressing the shortcomings, because if we gave a lot of money for people to install own capacities, solar panels, etc., we need to give them full freedom to integrate themselves in the grids, to exchange the energy, to pass it forward, to capture and store that energy. We have managed to get to a point where it is actually becoming very, very price competitive, perhaps even lower than traditional oil and gas sources. I always say that people are not in love with oil and gas. People love comfort and good prices. They couldn't care less where those come from. They are not ideologic about energy sources. Politicians make them ideologic about energy sources. People are ideologic about their house being warmed up, about having comfort, about having AC in the summer, about not spending a third of their budget on energy in the winter. We have also worked on protecting the energy infrastructure. We have a pact inside NATO to do that. The Task Force on Critical Infrastructure Resilience, I think it is crucial to do that. Why? Because we see in the periods of conflicts, energy sources are the ones always targeted, no? I mean, we see in the Ukraine case that energy facilities are always targeted by strikes. And by forcing new energy partnerships, I echo what the minister said, and I know that also Kazakhstan is represented here, so I also welcome the work that was done in the first EU Central Asia Summit in Samarkand. I was there at the time. And the global gateway investment of 12 billion, I also echo the minister's thoughts that we need to invest even more. And last but not least, I do believe that we have to upscale our renewable energy sources. Now, if you look at me and think, is Europe's response only renewable energy? I will say, no, it is a mix, it is diversification. But I will say that for us to gain strategic autonomy, it is one of the shortest. It is one of the cheapest. It is one where we can really, really work to increase efficiency and increase autonomy. Autonomy is the name of the game, no?
Thank you. This is, I think, opens a lot of questions. You also answered some of them, but checking the dependencies, of course, that increasing renewables will increase the independency. But at the same time, it opens the question on the dependency on the raw materials and the technology which is necessary to produce the investments in renewables. But we'll come back to that issue later. And I would like to ask Mr. Logar, your perspective. coming from Slovenia, a country which has a very solid industrial base still, and looking back at the energy crisis and the impact of the crisis on the economy, what is your take? What have you learned in Europe on the impact of the crisis? And what should be the key lessons that we should bring into the future, and also the Slovenian perspective in this scenario as well, please?
Well, main takeoff is that if you do not do homework today, it will be costly tomorrow. So the energy model of European Union was not sustainable, and we were aware of that, leaning on cheap Russian oil and gas. And it had to come to the blue chat until we realized that putting too many eggs in one single basket, it's not, I mean, it's disastrous for our economy. So we learned the lessons, but we are still in a way in a shadow. What my predecessor described, it's okay, but we have still the same problem, that the production of energy within the European Union, it's something we have to work on. We are still too much reliant on energens that are coming abroad. We still have to change the way how we supply our not every average citizen, but industrial basis, and how we shall, in a way, to enhance our competitiveness, lower the prices of energy for our economy. For example, in Slovenia case, we produce within the country 97% of energy needs. But the problem what we have is that a few years ago, the average price of the energy was 20 to 30% lower than EU average. So we were well off. Now the prices are on the EU average, so that means 20 to 30% higher, and it's costly for our competitiveness. And the same is it within European Union. And we are turning back to something what we established in order to be more green. It's coupons for the CO2. For example, I don't know if you know, but it started with more or less zero price, and now it's cost around 80 euros per ton of CO2, which reflect in price of, let's say, oil on our gas station for roughly 20 cents on the price we pay. So an average citizen pays for you know, to fuel the car. And that is even bigger effect on our economy. And there's a question how to establish a mix that will be sustainable and competitive in comparison, let's say, to our rivals from United States, from Eurasia, from Asia, Pacific, and things like this. So there's a lot of work to do, and for the time being, until we make, let's say, a new evolution on producing energy, which means, let's say, fusion power plant, we are still too much reliant on import of energy, let's say, ingredients. And in that time, the main question is, I think it was mentioned in the keynote speech, interconnectors. So I think this is the issue of the next few years that we have ahead until we find out something that will be within European Union and it will bear fruit. And just to make some small add, as I think you mentioned rightly, we were too dependent on the oil from Russia, so from the resources of energy, and we shall not make the same mistake to become dependent on technology. So you just switch one dependency on another dependency. But at the same time, one shall be aware that renewables, especially solar energy and wind energy, is not a substitute for the hardcore energy source, because you need a shadow reserve for every megawatt you produce by sun, you need a shadow resort of the hard power, either nuclear power plant or coal power or hydro. And we have to build grid, and we have to build energy sources that are solid, and all these renewables can be only value added in that sense.
And nuclear energy option for Slovenia, it's rather clear?
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, we built up our power plant in 83, I think, or it was 86, 83. First lifespan, it was prolonged. It will last until 2043, but it can be prolonged until 2063. Calculate 80 years of the energy productions. I mean, this is something.
Yeah.
So for 8 years to have a stable energy source is something one should opt as a reasonable resource of energy. And if you compare, for example, this aftermath of Ukraine war, from France and Germany, it was a complete difference. France invested in nuclear power plants. I think they have 53 or 56 nuclear power plants, while Germany was too reliant on energy from Russia, so from, let's say, gas and oil. And so it was much more costly for German industry than from France industry, even though France pays more for megawatt of the energy.
Thank you. We now move to Bulgaria, and I ask Deputy Minister Tasheva. Bulgaria is strategically positioned, Black Sea region, southeastern Europe. So from your perspective, how would you describe the strategic importance of this region? Can you bring us a little bit closer your perspective on the energy importance of the region for the Europe and for the whole energy policy of the European Union?
Thank you very much. First, from my side as well, thank you very much for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be part of this panel discussing a crucial issue for, I think, for competitiveness for all of our countries. And I couldn't agree more with what was said by my previous co-panelists about dependency, creating vulnerability, about the war in Ukraine exposing geopolitical risks of relying on a single supplier of energy, of also a lot of hybrid and cyber attacks showing that critical energy infrastructure nowadays is a part of actually the security architecture in Europe. And this is something that we, I mean, Bulgaria and the region we are in are experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and something that we are trying to overcome. And speaking about overcoming it, I don't think that today energy independence is equal to absolute self-reliance. To the contrary, part of the, let's say, the recipe for success is actually diversification, strong regional partnerships, investment in innovation and industrial competitiveness. And the region of Southeast Europe and the Black Sea has a crucial role to play, as you mentioned, and Bulgaria is very much involved in this European effort to overcome dependency through what we do, through expansion of our nuclear energy capacity, because nuclear energy, is, it was already mentioned, is, we think, really part of the solution, because we need a balanced energy mix with investment in nuclear, in renewables, in battery storage, in modern electricity grids that are capable of dealing with the increasing needs of energy and also of the fluctuations that go hand in hand with a mix that incorporates renewable energies in it. And this is what Bulgaria is doing, and what we also invest in partnerships, because As I mentioned, part of the solution is strong partnerships for diversification of routes and suppliers, partnerships with countries from the Black Sea region, from the Southern Caucasus, from Central Asia, as the Minister of Uzbekistan mentioned in the beginning. And it also stronger investment in local, in national production and energy innovation. I think that only in combination of all those elements, we can truly speak about energy independence, and in a way that is something that I would call pragmatic autonomy, not that much strategic autonomy, but pragmatic autonomy that is really born out of diversification and these strong partnerships that we all need.
Thank you for this perspective. And now moving to Croatia and Mr. Špehar, can I ask you about your view on Croatia's contribution to the EU energy policy security and diversification and less dependence? We know that Croatia is presented as a regional hub, especially referring to the LNG terminal. Can you maybe reflect a little bit more details on that, but also come back with the issue of Croatia's main vulnerabilities, just to get a picture on the country's country situation at the moment?
Yes. Despite of the fact that we are a relatively small country and that we are the last who joined the EU, Croatia is constantly playing its role in the team in a way that, first of all, we are taking care of our own energy security, but at the same time, without any how to say, false messages, we are trying to send a message that we are a reliable partner for our own, primarily for our neighbors, but in general for the EU. So we are aware of our strategic position, geographical position, and in that fact we are trying to play as, how to say, as constructive as possible role. In this respect, first of all, we were dealing with our own energy security. As many Eastern European and Central European countries, we were for years focused on East concerning energy sources. We were quite good in the context of our own energy production. Until some 15 years ago, we were quite good in gas production. Majority of gas was coming from our own fields. We were quite good with oil production. We are still good with oil refining. So, but that was those days. So I would focus, if we look at the timeline and we put us in somewhere in the middle, what we can see. We can see the past and all the lessons learned, everything basically what colleagues said are the past. And on the other side, there is a future, or let's say target, where we want to go and by which date or time we want to get to that goal. It is called energy transition, green transition, however you want to call it. In this transition, there are few facts which are inevitable, or few key points that we should be aware of. So, energy security or availability of enough reliable energy sources is a precondition for everything, precondition for the economy to grow, and we want to grow. We as Croatia, we consider that we are lacking or have to speed up our process in order to achieve at least some of our neighbors, how to say, statistics. In this context, we need reliable, clean, and affordable energy. It's a tough, let's say, task to achieve all three. But in this context, first of all, I think I agree completely with everything was said prior to that, but one other fact is to be worth to be mentioned, is the energy efficiency and energy savings. This is something that we are quite good within. I'm speaking about primarily EU, but we still have enough space to fulfill the blanks, because there is enough, still enough to be done in this context. So energy savings can be done. It takes time, it takes efforts. It is under, let's call it, under control. Energy efficiency is something which is crucial, especially in the context of industry. So in this context, together with the national funds, but also with the EU funding, we are doing quite, let's say, good efforts in this respect to modernize wherever it is possible in order to be as energy efficient as possible. But for all that, we still need the precondition, which is reliable energy sourcing. Unfortunately, Europe in general is energy dependent, energy importer, and it will stay like this for a certain period of time. So that means that our primary focus is to extract or to produce as much as possible of any kinds of energy sources from our own, let's say, on our own territories. Wind and sun are something which is, we are blessed with it, so everybody is doing quite good. But also, our Slovenian colleague said it very, very nice. So we need, for not only for industry, but primarily for industry and for the security of power network, we need a stable base source of electricity. So if you look what was happening in Spain last year, somehow it seems that sun is not enough. Sun is a great element of the energy mix, which we want to have as much as possible, together with the new technologies like batteries, like hydrogen, so we can and should focus on sun as much as possible. Costs of solar panels are still decreasing day by day. Unfortunately, we should be aware where those panels are being produced, and we should be aware what we have to do with those panels when their life cycle ends. But okay, there are technologies, ways how to recycle them. So besides that, sorry to say, we have to be aware or to admit to ourselves that fossil fuels are something that we cannot skip or forget or disregard in the energy mix. We will have to rely on them for another at least decade, and I would say even more. In this context, CO2 cost is something which, again, is additionally burdening that option, let's call it that way. Coming back to energy efficiency, this is also one way of dealing with that problem. And when we speak about renewables, I always prefer to say carbon neutral technologies. That means that not only wind and sun, there is, at least in Croatia, high geothermal potential is significant. This is what we are now being focused, at least in heating, but also in electricity production. And as a cherry on the top, we cannot and we should not, disregard the option that nuclear can bring to our economies. Okay. There are other new technologies, and we are, let's say, we are obliged to also take them into consideration.
Okay. Thank you for this. And now I think everybody is clear how complex the topic that we are dealing today is, how many factors need to be taken into account. But with Bosnia and Herzegovina is a little bit even more complex, since there is also this, I would connect now a little bit energy situation with the enlargement process. Mr. Brkic, can you maybe tell us a little bit more how you see the integration of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also other non-EU Western Balkan countries into the Europe's energy infrastructure before the full EU membership. So let's not wait for the EU full membership, but what can be done from your perspective already now to integrate Bosnia and other countries better into the EU architecture?
Thank you very much. And in the first instance, I'm congratulating my colleagues from Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs of Republic of Croatia for excellent organizing another Dubrovnik Forum. You could hear how much complicated it is for the countries of the European Union, and how much the legislators are, putting the framework that would be, obliging for the member countries, but it's already obliging for us candidate countries to the European Union, which is normal. You have to, comply with the rules of the club that you want to join. It's not easy, and it's not cheap. It's cost for us. At the same time, we do not have access for all of the sectors and policies provided, I'm talking for the Bosnia and Herzegovina, from the European Union to try to change or substitute what we have as our energy sources. And in our case, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, close to 65% of all electricity energy produced is carbon-based, coal-based.
Coal-based.
Why? Because under the very conservative, I would say, surveys, Bosnia and Herzegovina has more than 6 centuries of reserves of lignite to burn more to produce the electricity. Now we have to renounce this source, which is ours, that you have to just, dig from the ground. And it is, of course, not cheap, but it's cheaper than to import whatever that you cannot control. Second of all, my country is 100% dependent on the natural gas imported even today from Russia. One of the examples that I was living and my colleagues in Sarajevo as the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina back in, I think it was 2012 or 2013, prior to the start of the Russian aggression to Ukraine in 2014, was that due to the whatever dispute between the Ukraine and Russia, the main valve for the natural gas was closed, and we were at the very end of that pipe in Sarajevo, which used predominantly this for the heating of the houses. Without having any strategic depots for the natural gas, we were actually, using what was there, and that left us in an opportunity that for a couple of days, very cold days, in Sarajevo, which was the host of the 14 Winter Olympics, so there is a lot of snow and could be a very cold days, produced actually the situation where the citizens were, going and trying to find the alternative for the heating. Of course, that was the electricity. But then the electricity grid that was predominantly done prior to the 80s, during the 80s, and renewed after the aggression to Bosnia and Herzegovina in 95 was, of course, jumping out, and it was, I would say, for a couple of days, chaos. Thanks to God, we had good neighbors that, helped us in with their quantities for the natural gas, and then we could bypass this. Even today, what we are trying to do is to try to reallocate, in particular, natural gas resource or source of coming to Bosnia and Herzegovina with so-called Southern Interconnector, something that we do with the Republic of Croatia and with the United States partners. That would, dramatically decrease dependency of Bosnia and Herzegovina for the natural gas. There is a heavily investment in photovoltaic, solar, and aeolic energy. But as the minister was saying and colleagues were agreeing, serious industry cannot rely on this. Aluminium factory in Mostar or steel factory in Zenica cannot rely only on the renewable. So we are having this mixed energy mix for the Bosnia and Herzegovina, negotiating with the European Union for some prolonged dates for us to construct Southern Interconnector, because we should be closing the natural gas from Russia by 1st of January 2028, and that the use of the carbon-based electric energy also for Bosnia and Herzegovina should be, pushed forward until we, and this is the part of the energy deal that we are negotiating with the investors from the United States, build the thermal power plants which are going to be, run on gas in a couple of cities in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So this mix of renewables, which is increasing, and the mix already existing, and softly transitioning into the natural gas thermal power plants is going to be something that is going to, paint our energy mix in the future.
And your expectations on this flexibility from the side of the EU, do you expect that it will have this necessary flexibility that smooths this transition, which is looking very heavy from your words?
I mean, we all have, from the sovereign countries, while negotiating with the European Union, we know how tough negotiators they can be. But this is, something which is real life, which is touching the life of every citizens, not only in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but throughout the Southeast Europe and either those member countries of the EU or non-member countries of the EU. And we believe that we can make some additional time.
Okay. Thank you. And now going to back to Central Asia, and we have Mr. Zebeshev with us. So, Mr. Zebeshev, Kazakhstan and Central Asia, they are increasingly important in discussions on energy, critical raw materials, and connectivity, as we could heard from the introductory words by Minister from Uzbekistan. From your perspective, from the Kazakhstan perspective, how is the multipolar energy landscape changing, and what role you see for Central Asia in a more diversified and more resilient Euro-Asian connectivity and energy system?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. And dear ladies and gentlemen, for me, it is also an honor to be part of this panel session. And I wanted, by answering this question, to share the information that just 3 days ago, our President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev paid a visit to Brussels, and we, by this visit, added a powerful new momentum to our cooperation between Kazakhstan and European Union member states. So the first is the European Union and Kazakhstan reaffirmed the strategic partnership on critical raw materials, hydrogen and batteries. And also the sides agreed to accelerate infrastructure development in the line with the Global Gateway Initiative. And the joint roadmap was endorsed to expand the Trans-Caspian International Transport Road. So this middle corridor is one of the fastest growing trade roads between Asia and Europe, and we see that the volumes are increased 5 times in the recent 7 years, from 0.8 million till 4.1 million tons per year. And surely these steps are directly affecting and supporting Europe's energy security, bearing in mind that Kazakhstan is the world's 11th biggest crude oil producer, and in 2025 we produced nearly 100 million tons of crude oil and exported 80%. And for the European Union, Kazakhstan is the second largest oil exporter. So we try to ensure that there is an uninterrupted supply, and we are trying to diversify export routes. And at the same time, as previous speakers said, we are also, by ensuring the conventional energy sources, we're also developing our renewable energy sources and our current production capacity is 3.6 GV of green energy, and it is about 7% of total energy. So our aim is by 2030 to reach 15%, and by 2050 reach 50%. And we can say that clean energy transition is heavily dependent on access to the critical raw materials. So Kazakhstan is well positioned to become one of the Europe's most reliable partner in this field. We can assure that Kazakhstan can supply 21 out of 34 critical raw materials, and so we're ready to act as a bridge between regions, economies, and energy systems, and work together to increase this energy resilience. And as a Minister of Uzbekistan said that Central Asia is actually ready to work, but the only need is to attract FDI to the region, to attract technologies, and so we can build together the future energy sovereignty and resilience. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Time is killing us. Mr. Stefanusa, taking these words into, echoing these words, what would you say, how the EU should pursue cooperation with Kazakhstan? These are very good news. So are we really talking now about strategic cooperation, or is it actually more transactional looking way of cooperation towards Kazakhstan? They will provide the raw materials that we need, or we are actually trying to achieve something more strategic in relation with Central Asia, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan in particular?
It was very useful to listen to both representatives of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, as well as the European colleagues on stage. It can only be strategic. Energy is strategic. Energy is not a one-off. Energy investment is strategic. Energy FDI is strategic. So indeed, the European Union is interested in having green energy corridors, in having technology partnerships, not only in the Central Asia area. There are offers from several countries across the world. Raw materials, rare earths, minerals, etc. I don't need to repeat how critical they are to the development of the future. We have to also build our own capacities. I take the point. I also take the point from the candidate countries. Mm-hmm. It is important for us to have an integrated vision as regards the Balkans, but also as regards Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Moldova, etc. So coming back, also there's dialogues with countries of Africa as regards critical raw materials. But to sum it up, the European Union is serious about these partnerships. We are here to work on more stable, more diversified, more integrated Euro-Asian space in the energy market, but also to continue to work on our autonomy and independency.
Thank you. And Mr. Logan, from your perspective, what can realistically be achieved at the level of the EU when it comes to the reducing dependencies, increasing energy security? When you look at the next year or two, do you think we can really move substantially ahead, given the EU difficulties in reaching decisions and making concrete actions?
Well, I think the period from talks is more or less ending, so we have to go to the action. Those action in, let's say, fulfilling the gap we left years behind cannot be just redrawn in a 12 months lifespan. So we are talking about 5 years of next schemes or next steps. There are some good projects. There are within European Union and with let's say region around European Union. For example, Greece has its program GREGI, named GREGI, It's the high voltage cable beneath the sea going to Egypt, where there is a big solar plant. And this investment is something that will bear fruit, for example, in 2030, which means it's going to be a biggest solar power plant connected to European country with high voltage cable that would bring to the possibility to bring to Europe around 3 gigawatts of energy. If you add this additional solar plant and wind plant in Egypt and countries of North Africa, it can bear up to 10 gigawatts of energy, which is roughly 10 nuclear power plant with, in a way, renewables by technology of European Union. The next step is North Sea Line. Norway, in a way, it's the natural power plant by sea tide, by wind. We have to connect countries from the north and connect them into the European grid, and this brings additional huge amount of energy within the system, and it helps bring the sustainability and, in a way, own resource of energy from European Union. And then is Euro-Asian interconnector, that it's more or less the same like program with South Africa to the Middle East. So there are 3 projects that could, in the meantime, bring some relief in bringing or diversifying energy mix, but we have to act very quickly. I mean, we do not have time to wait. And as I said at the beginning, interconnectors, this is the main issue for the next few years that are, in a way, in the hands of European Union.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you for these words. Time is practically finished. Let's thank our panelists. Thank you for joining here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for discussion. And hopefully we continue discussion after the panel. Thank you.
If I can get the microphone for just 30 seconds. Thank you so much to everyone indeed for a very critical debate. Much appreciated. Thank you to the moderator for skillfully guiding this discussion. Just a very short logistical remark. We're going to take a quick 10-15 minute break. And from here on, the Dubrovnik Forum, if you will, is going to separate into parallel sessions. So basically, please follow the program. Some of the sessions will take place here in the main room, and some right when you walk outside to your immediate left. So please follow the program very closely, because from now on the parallel sessions will start, and it's very pertinent that according to your interest and expertise that you are in the right room. So with that, thanks again. Please give another round of applause for this panel. Appreciate it.